Well, this week there was another energy event on the east coast of Australia when temperatures spiked and energy demand went through the roof. In New South Wales, at one point, wholesale prices were 250 times their average of the previous month, from $70 to $17,500 per megawatt hour. The regulator, AEMO, had to step in with rarely used powers to negotiate and pay big energy users to curb their power use. So with this, I thought we should revisit someone that we spoke with a couple of years ago. Brett Lawrence is a general manager of the Adelaide-based foundry Intercast and Forge. Now, several years ago, he decided to change the way that the company buys electricity, which is vital for its survival. It's an exporter of products to Europe and also to Asia. It has to be competitive. So instead of having a contract with an energy provider, Intercast and Forge buys wholesale electricity direct from the market. Sometimes it's cheap, virtually given away. At other times, as we saw this week, prohibitively expensive. And the energy markets have changed the way and even the times that the company operates. I spoke with Brett Lawrence late this week.
We've stayed on the wholesale market because retail prices on offer remain uncompetitive for us, particularly when we export 60% of our work. We just wouldn't win any work overseas at that juncture. And over the last 7 years, we've worked ways in which to decrease our cost, even though it means at times we turn all power off to our furnaces, which is the lifeblood of the foundry.
All right, so just remind me, and remind people, you changed your work practices to coincide with energy prices when they're at their cheapest. And quite often, because I watch the wholesale prices closely, in South Australia, you can get negative prices. But that might be, say, for example, when the wind's blowing, when the sun's shining, that's a time when the energy is the cheapest. And I presume that's a time when you're working hardest.
Well, yeah. I mean, in reality, if the foundry runs when we're operating, other than when prices are over a certain number, let's say $300 a megawatt, which doesn't happen that often, and sometimes only for 5 minutes. What most people don't understand is buying on the wholesale market means the price in every part of the market, no matter whether you're Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia or whatever, will change every 5 minutes. And it has variation from minus 1,000 to, as you pointed out, 17,500 for the same megawatt. So from our perspective, we modified our start and finishes time, because most of the time throughout the year, but in particular in summer and winter, the time that people go home, so 4 p.m. till about 8 p.m, is the highest peak demand, and that's when the prices peak the most. So our shift change is 6 till 4, and then our night shift starts 8 p.m. and goes till 6 a.m, which takes us out of the majority of the times where the price is peaking.
But you're also a great example of an Australian manufacturer, an Australian company that is energy intensive, that is still able to compete in global markets. I mean, you've been providing sort of parts for all sorts of transit systems in Europe, in Singapore, I know, in recent times. Are you able to still compete on energy prices, which is the key ingredient of your products?
Look, the competition has got harder from our perspective. Prices have definitely increased, but for instance, this quarter, the price in SA, despite the rumours in the market, is about $46 a megawatt. In Queensland and New South Wales, it's $120 to $140 for that same megawatt. So for us, it's not just the ions or the electrons that we're buying. That's, as I said, $46. The cost for us is all the other costs that are adding on, that the AEMO has to put the poles and wires and all the systems in place. So our true cost is around $75 to $85. If I go back 10 years or so, it was about $30 total cost. So from a manufacturer's perspective, most other countries globally, particularly that are interested in keeping manufacturing going, have subsidies in place to ensure that their high-intensity manufacturing can stay competitive. So for us, it's meant we've had to continue productivity improvements and actually reduce our margins to remain competitive.
So it's interesting because I was speaking with the chief executive of BlueScope Steel just last week. Now, he obviously has a big intensive business, a bit like yours, energy intensive business. But what he's got is obviously a plant in the United States. So he's pouring more of his capital into the United States to be able to be more competitive. The problem is you're based in Australia. You don't necessarily have that luxury to pick up and move your capital, to pick up and move your business, to go somewhere else where it is potentially more competitive.
Yeah, correct. So, and look, part and parcel, and most businesses will tell you the same, part and parcel of that is not just the equipment that we have, because everyone can buy the same equipment that we're buying. We're importing those from the equipment from either Europe or the US generally. The issue for us is our IP and our people to be able to design product that is effective for customers and decreases their cost of buying the product and the functionality of that product. So our IP is manufacturing within the scope that we can to design a product that is better for them than what every other foundry can do.
So tell me, after you spoke to me last time and spoke to a lot of people about this, did you find other manufacturers came to you and said, how have you done this? Is there any way that we could also potentially get out of contracts and go and buy direct from the wholesale markets?
Unsurprisingly, to tell you the truth, not too many did. So I'm also the president of the Foundry Institute of Australia, and some foundries have asked me similar sort of context, how would they do that? The issue for us is that we're a lot larger than most, but our equipment enables us to be able to turn off in less than a second and not have an impact on the integrity of that machinery itself. A lot of other manufacturers, and in particular some of the other foundries, haven't got quite the same furnace capability and therefore aren't quite able to have that same functionality. In addition to that, because we're the largest foundry in Australia, we are able, based on the electricity we're using, to go onto the wholesale market. For others, they're smaller and they're not entitled to go in the wholesale market. They arguably have to go with a retailer.
Brett Lawrence from Intercast and Forge. Again, many thanks for your time and explaining it to us.
Thanks, Ross.